Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really digging into something pretty historic. Maybe one of the most unexpected political wins in the U.S. recently. That's the election of Zohran Mamdani as New York City's next mayor. Our mission here is simple. Give you the fast track on who this democratic socialist is, what his, radical platform promises, especially on cost of living, and the intense political fights that shaped his victory.
Yeah, this is a really significant moment. I mean, Mamdani isn't just the city's first Muslim mayor or the first South Asian mayor. He's also the youngest in a century at 34. And you really need to grasp the scale here. He's about to run the fifth largest city budget in the whole country. We're talking $116 billion.
Wow. $116 billion. That's an enormous operation. You'd think experience would be key, but the voters, well, they gave him a clear mandate, didn't they? Despite what the establishment was saying. Mamdani, who is openly a democratic socialist, got 50.6% of the vote in the unofficial count, beat former Governor Andrew Cuomo pretty decisively. Cuomo got 41.4%, and the Republican Curtis Sliwa way back at 7.2%. Mamdani takes office January 1st.
Exactly. It seems like the sheer force of his platform, this unapologetically left-wing vision, just kind of overwhelmed a really well-funded, more moderate opposition.
Okay, so let's unpack the person first. Who is Zohran Mamdani? His story suggests he was almost like purpose-built for activism with this really global background.
Absolutely. His roots are, well, they're truly transnational. Born in Kampala, Uganda, 1991. His parents are pretty well known. Mahmood Mamdani, the political scientist at Columbia, and Mira Nair, the filmmaker, both Harvard grads. So, very intellectual, artistic household from the start.
And the family moved quite a bit, settling in New York when he was young.
That's right. Work, sometimes political asylum issues brought them here. He landed in NYC around age 7, got a top-notch education, Bronx Science for high school, then Bowdoin College, majored in African studies there. And his political side showed early. He founded the Students for Justice and Palestine Club back in college. Interestingly, he only became a U.S. citizen in 2018.
Wait, 2018. And then, okay, this is where it gets interesting. Before politics, he was a housing consultant, fighting evictions in Queens, and producing rap music. That feels very, very New York, very grassroots.
It really does. It speaks to, I think, a deep connection with the communities he ended up representing. Became a citizen, like you said, 2018. Elected to the state assembly just 2 years later, in 2020, he points to Bernie Sanders' 2016 run as the moment he really embraced that democratic socialist label publicly.
And just one last personal note. He's Shia Muslim, married to Rama Dawaji, a Syrian-American artist. And apparently they met on Hinge, the dating app, which somehow makes this guy about to control a $116 billion budget feel a bit more human.
Right. It connects him to the city's huge immigrant population, the millennial generation. It sort of underscores the shift his campaign represented.
Okay, let's get into the substance. The absolute core of his campaign was tackling the cost of living. He hammered this point home again and again, calling NYC the most expensive city in the U.S. and saying it's forcing working families out.
Yeah, that laser focus let him propose some pretty radical things. Solutions that really bypass the usual free market approaches.
Starting with housing. I mean, that's the number one pressure point for so many New Yorkers. What's the plan there?
It's got several parts. First, immediate action. Freeze rents for all rent-stabilized tenants.
Whoa, an immediate freeze for everyone in those units.
That's the proposal. Then, looking forward, create a social housing development agency. Basically, get the city directly involved in building, bypassing private developers to some extent. The aim, triple the rate of building permanently affordable, union-built, rent-stabilized housing. We're talking 200,000 new units over 10 years.
Okay, 200,000 units sounds great for tenants. But wasn't there huge pushback on the rent freeze idea? I remember the New York Times editorial board, for instance, worrying it would just kill any incentive to build or maintain housing.
That was exactly the critique from the establishment, yeah. They see housing as an investment, primarily. A freeze, they argued, leads to disinvestment, makes things worse long term. Mamdani's counter was pretty straightforward. Housing is a human right, and his plan directly targeted landlords he called neglectful. It includes a serious crackdown. The city steps in, makes repairs, bills the owner, and in really extreme cases of neglect,
Yeah.
the city could actually move to seize control of the property.
Seize private property. Wow, that's a direct challenge to the real estate power structure in New York.
It's meant to be. It sends a message that letting buildings decay isn't just bad business. It's something the city will actively fight.
Okay, so housing is one big piece. Then there's transportation. If you live in New York, you know the bus system can be painfully slow. He had ideas for that too, right?
He did. NYC buses are, sadly, the slowest in the nation. So Mamdani tackled both cost and speed.
Yeah.
He wants to make all city buses permanently fare-free.
All of them. Building on that pilot program he helped get going.
Exactly. He argued, look, 1 in 5 New Yorkers struggle with the fare right now. This makes a huge difference for access. And then, to speed things up,
Yeah. How do you fix the speed problem?
more dedicated bus lanes push through much faster. And crucially, these things called bus queue jump signals. Basically, for the listener, it gives buses a little head start at traffic lights, helps them cut through congestion, makes the bus a more reliable, faster option than driving, potentially.
Makes sense. Okay, beyond getting around, he focused on the financial squeeze on families. Wages, childcare, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, some really bold ideas here. He's pushing for universal child care for all kids, aged 6 weeks to 5 years old. A huge potential benefit for working parents. And get this, to fight high food costs, he proposed city-owned, nonprofit grocery stores.
City-owned grocery stores, like a public option for food.
Pretty much. The idea is, since they wouldn't pay rent or property taxes like a private store, they could keep prices lower, offer real competition. And alongside that, he strongly backs raising the city's minimum wage. Phased in, but aiming for $30 an hour by 2030.
$30 an hour, that's way above the current state level. Did the business community react strongly to that? Worries about small businesses?
Oh, absolutely. Fierce criticism, the usual arguments. It'll cause inflation, kill jobs, crush small businesses. That was the line from the business lobby. Mamdani's camp, though, they pointed to studies suggesting that in super high-cost places like New York, you need aggressive wage hikes just for people to survive. They framed it as basic economics for workers, not some radical experiment.
Gotcha. And the last big piece was community safety. But he framed it differently, didn't he? Less about police, more about social issues.
Exactly. He wants a new Department of Community Safety. The focus would be heavily on mental health services, violence prevention programs. He explicitly said the city needs to stop relying on police to solve problems that are really failures of the social safety net. So plans for more outreach workers in subways, things like that. And notably, a huge funding increase, 800% for hate crime prevention.
An 800% increase. That's significant given, well, everything going on.
Okay, this is a massive, comprehensive, and obviously very expensive set of promises. Which brings us to the big question. How does he possibly pay for all this? How does Mayor Mamdani fund this, well, socialist vision?
Right. This is where the sparks really flew. He has a very specific plan, and it's aimed squarely at the top earners and biggest corporations. It's classic tax and spend, shifting who pays for city services.
Okay, give us the numbers. Where's the money coming from and what's it for? Plan A is raising the corporate tax rate to 11.5%. That matches New Jersey's rate, actually. He projected that brings in about $5 billion. Then Plan B is a flat 2% income tax increase, but only on New Yorkers earning over $1 million a year.
Just on the million-plus earners, how much does that raise?
That's projected to bring in a total of $20 billion. And that $20 billion is specifically earmarked. It's meant to fund the big-ticket items like free tuition at CONY and SUNY city universities and that universal childcare system we talked about.
So he's literally funding his platform by raising taxes on the wealthy individuals and corporations who,
Wow.
well, who spend a fortune trying to stop him from getting elected in the first place. Let's talk about that opposition. It was huge, right?
Intense and coordinated. Financially, you had big names, Michael Bloomberg, Bill Ackman, the hedge fund guy, pouring at least $22 million into supporting Andrew Cuomo, his main rival.
$22 million. That's serious money. Why didn't it work? Why didn't that kind of spending stop Mamdani's grassroots campaign?
Well, it seems like that money went mostly into traditional stuff, TV ads, maybe high-level campaign operations. But it couldn't really compete with the ground game Mamdani built. His campaign knocked on, reportedly, over 2 million doors. They connected those specific policies, the rent freeze, free buses, directly to people's everyday struggles in their neighborhoods. And that message, it seems, resonated more than the sort of general anti-socialist attacks funded by the big money.
And the verbal attacks were pretty sharp, too. The establishment line was basically inexperienced and too radical, right?
That was the constant drumbeat, yeah. New York's too big, too complex for someone this idealistic, this inexperienced.
Hmm.
Uh, and then you have the national fires weighing in. Former President Trump called him a communist, even threatened to pull federal funds if Mamdani won.
Trump also made some really inflammatory comments linking Mamdani and anti-Semitism, which connects to Mamdani's stance on Israel and Palestine. That was a major flashpoint, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. Mamdani's position is very clear, very progressive on this. He's been outspoken for Palestinian rights. He's called Israel an apartheid state. And he proposed ending New York tax breaks for charities that are specifically linked to funding Israeli settlements, which he framed as violating international law.
A position like that must have drawn strong reactions, especially from diplomatic circles.
It definitely did. The Israeli consul general in New York publicly stated Mamdani's win posed a threat to the Jewish community. Serious language. Mamdani's response was, okay, first, Israel has a right to exist. Second, he pointed to that 800% increase in funding for anti-Semitism prevention we mentioned. But he didn't back down from his core critique. He said he was uncomfortable supporting any state based on what he called a religious citizenship hierarchy.
It sounds like a really brutal campaign overall. There were even real-world threats involved.
Yeah. On Election Day itself, there were bomb threats in Paterson, New Jersey, a city with a large Turkish community that actually stopped voting for a bit. And Mamdani himself reported getting daily Islamophobic threats aimed at him and his family. It got serious enough that the police hate crimes unit started an investigation.
So let's try to sum this up. What this deep dive really shows is a truly historic win. It was driven by intense grassroots work, an unapologetically left platform focus, laser-like on affordability. And it succeeded despite facing massive coordinated opposition, both political and financial.
I think that's right. It really signals a potential seismic shift, at least in the political center of gravity for Democrats in major cities. Mamdani's win basically challenges decades of thinking, this idea that you have to rely on private market fixes for big public problems like housing or even groceries. He showed that a campaign built on systemic change, funded by taxing the wealthy and direct public intervention, well, it can actually win control of a $116 billion government.
It's definitely a victory for the organizers, for that movement. But now the challenge shifts, right, from campaigning to actually governing.
Exactly. The mandate he got from voters is pretty radical. But running a city, especially New York, inevitably involves compromise.
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. Considering just how much opposition Mamdani faced politically, financially, and knowing the kind of deal making and maneuvering that running a giant city requires, how will Mayor Mamdani possibly balance that need for compromise with the really radical anti establishment mandate his progressive base gave him? Especially when his whole funding plan relies on taxing the very powerful people and interests who already spent millions trying to make sure he never got the job.